Hello everyone. In this video, we will discuss the poem Elegy written in a country churchyard, which is written by Thomas Gray. Thomas Gray was a poet who wrote during the neoclassical period. But even though he wrote during this period, his poems seemed to be a part of the Romantic period. So he is thought to be a pre Romantic poet. So, since he is acting as a poet who has the qualities of both neoclassical as well as Romantic period poets, we call him a transitional poet. This poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard, is his most famous poem. It is one of the most important poems of English literature. And this poem is thought to have been written in 1740s after his friend Richard West's death. Thomas Gray was not a poet who was very confident about his poems. He was a very harsh critic of himself, and so very less poems written by him are published. And even this poem, the Elegy written in a country churchyard, he was forced to publish this in 1751 because his friend Horace Walpole he informed Thomas Gray that his poem is in the hands of others and they are planning to publish it, and even before they could publish it, Thomas Gray wanted to publish the poem as it is using the original words. Apart from being called an elegy, that is a mournful poem, this poem is also thought to be a pastoral poem. So it is a pastoral elegy. You will find many images and many devices which are all related to a pastoral setting. You will find iambic pentameter used here, and the rhyme scheme is ABAB. Moving into the poem, right from the title of the poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard, we understand that this poem is an elegy. Now, even though I have mentioned that the poem is supposed to be written after the death of his friend Richard West, his name, Richard West's name, is nowhere mentioned in the poem. This poem is thought to be an elegy which is addressed to everyone, all the mortals, all human beings, including you, me, and even the poet himself. In the first three quatrains of the poem, that is stanzas, quatrains are simply stanzas with four lines. In these first three stanzas or quatrains of the poem, we understand the setting of the poem. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly over the lea. The ploughman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me. Now, even though this seems like Gray is only describing the setting of the poem, that is, the bell in the church has been rung since it is evening, and people are all moving into their houses. The cattle, the lowing herd, the cattle is moving through the grass, they are moving into their stables, and also the ploughman and the other working people who are on the fields, they are all moving into their homes for the night's rest. And there is darkness all around after the evening. But in these images, if you take a closer look, you find that there are images of death. For example, look at the underlined words in the first stanza. Now, knell is a bell that is rung to indicate a person's death. And you have parting day. Parting day could easily symbolize the parting life, the death of a person. And the lowing herd could also symbolize the mourners. When someone dies, there are people who mourn over his death. And finally, darkness, obviously, something that is often associated with death. Another important device used in this first stanza is very way, which is a transferred epithet. That is, weary means tired. Who is weary here? The person who is weary is the ploughman who is moving homeward after the work. And instead of telling that the ploughman is weary, here Gray says that the way through which the ploughman goes, the way is weary. See, it's like saying sleepless nights. It is we who do not sleep, but the adjective sleepless is used for nights instead of using it for the person. So, the same way, here the way is called weary instead of calling the ploughman tired. So that is an example of transferred epithet. Now moving on, now fades the glimmering landscape on the sight, and all the air a solemn stillness holds, save where the beetle wheels his drowning flight and drowsy tinklings lull the distant folds. Now, here again, we get a picture of the sitting. So, slowly, the glimmering landscape, the landscape which he could see earlier, is slowly fading away in the darkness. And the air is solemn still. You can see that it is very quiet and peaceful, and the only sound that you could hear is the sound of the beetle. Beetle is personified here, and another sound that you can hear is the sound of the bells which are tied on the cattles. And here again you can see drowsy tinklings. The cattles are tired, but the adjective drowsy is used for the bells instead of using it for the cattles. Again, an example for transferred epithet. Save that from yonder ivy mantled tower, the moping owl does to the moon complain of such as wandering near her secret bower molest her ancient solitary reign. Now, in the next stanza, we find an ivy mantled tower. The tower is personified here. The tower seems to be wearing a mantle, a coat that is made of ivy plant. And there is someone inside the tower. You will find the moping owl who is complaining to the moon right now. And what is she complaining about? She is complaining about someone who has invaded her privacy at this time of the day. The owl is not used to visitors during this time of the day. And for some reason, our speaker is loitering around, wandering around in the darkness for some reason near the ivy tower. So the owl is personified again, and the owl seems to be complaining to the moon about this. In the next stanza of the poem, the poet describes a graveyard. So the speaker is walking, he is wandering, and he reaches a graveyard. Beneath those rugged elms that yew trees shade, where heaves the turf in many a mouldering heap, each in his narrow cell forever laid, the rude forefathers of the hamlet sleep. So he finds that beneath all these trees, the elms and the yew trees, there are heaps of soil which refer to the grave. Now, the poet doesn't directly say that these are graves. He say that each person is resting in his narrow cell forever. Cell means rooms. Now, every person has a very narrow room. It's not very spacious. It's a small place for them to live. But they will be laid there forever. They will never come out of that rest. So we understand that they are dead. And the speaker also says that in these graves lay the rude forefathers of the hamlet. Now, hamlet is a very small village. So, these people who are dead and who are buried under the earth are the forefathers of the small village hamlet. And they are not rude in the present sense of the word. They simply lived a very simple, peaceful, quiet life. They were not sophisticated or civilized like how we expect the people of the cities or towns to live. So, all these people are there in their graves. And the speaker says, nothing which excites or wakes a normal person in life is going to wake them anymore because they are forever sleeping in their graves now. And the next stanza says about this: the breezy call of incense breathing morn, the fresh smelling breeze of the morning, the swallow twittering from the straw built shed, the small birds which make the sound in the morning sitting in the shed, the cock's shrill clarion or the echoing horn, the sound of the cock or the sound of the echoing horn, the sound of the horn of hunters. None of these is going to rouse them from their lowly bed. For them no more the blazing hearth shall burn, or busy housewife ply her evening care. No children run to lisp their sigh's return, or climb his knees the envied kiss to share. Now again, They are not going to enjoy any more of those pleasures which a person who is alive would be able to enjoy. The fireplaces won't burn anymore to keep him warm. Or the busy housewife, she wouldn't be busy anymore taking care of him after he comes home after work. The children wouldn't rush to him anymore when he returns after work. And no more will they rush to sit on his lap and get a kiss from him. The kiss is called envied here, maybe because he would kiss the first child who would sit on his lap, or the children might want all the kisses for themselves. So none of these is going to happen anymore. And then the speaker tells us or gives us a glimpse of what their life was like before they died. Oft did the harvest their sickle yield, their furrow oft the stubborn glebe had broke. How jocund did they drive their team afield, how bowed the woods beneath their sturdy stroke. They were a very hard working folk, as you can see. They used their sickle, their farming equipments, and they worked on the fields, they harvested their crops, and whatever ground it is, whatever stubborn ground, glebe soil, even if the soil was very hard, they would work on it, plow it, and then they would harvest their crop from that. How jocund did they drive their team afield? Now, team is a collection of oxen. A collection of oxen is called a team. They would happily drive their oxen on the field. And even the woods, the tall trees, they would just bow beneath their axes. They would cut all the tall trees with their sturdy stalks. This is again another example for personification. The woods bowing down before the axes of these people. The woods don't bow. The woods are not actually bowing. They are being cut down by these people using their axes. But the poet chose to say that the woods are bowing down, an example of personification. So we see that these people have led a very simple, common, ordinary life. They live in very close harmony with nature. And then the poet tells us, let not ambition mock their useful toil. Now, just because we saw that their life is very ordinary, their life is very simple. So, just because their life is simple, let our ambition, we might be people with big ambitions. We might want to be the president of the country. We might have huge ambitions. Let not our ambition make us mock their useful toil. They live a very simple life, but the work that they do is actually very useful. Toil is hard work. So let not ambition mock their useful toil, their homely joys and destiny obscure. They have happy lives, even though they have simple lives, they have simple joys too, and their destiny is a bit obscure or unclear. Nor grandeur here with a disdainful smile, the short and simple annals of the poor. So, annals are the records. Now, let us not mock their short and simple life, the records of the poor life that they have lived, just because of the grandeur, the ambition that we enjoy. The boast of heraldry, the poem of power, and all that beauty and all that wealth ever gave, awaits alike the inevitable hour. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. Now, after giving us a description of the simple life that these people had lived once, the speaker tells us that we are in no position to mock them in any way. Our ambition, our grandeur, the boast of our heraldry or our power, whatever power we have, whatever heraldry or family tradition, heritage we have, we are in no position to mock these people because all the beauty, all the wealth that we ever have made, everything that we have, in the end waits for the inevitable hour. Inevitable hour is here referring to death. And he says this is one of the most important, most famous lines from the poem. The paths of glory lead but to the grave. We might have led a very successful life, a very powerful life, but whatever it is that we have, everything ends at the grave. All the paths of glory lead to the grave. And then he says, nor you, ye proud, impute to these the fault, if memory over their tombed no trophies raise, where through the long drawn aisle the fretted vault, the pealing anthem swells the note of praise. And then he's telling, and you, You proud people, you people with big ambitions and big dreams, glory, and all these things. Don't blame the poor if there are no memorials on their graves, if they simply have a heap of soil on the grave instead of having big decorated memorials. Don't belittle their achievement in life. They have achieved something in their life. It may be less in your eyes, but it's not less. So, even though there are no trophies or memorials on their tombs, even though there are not fretted walls, decorated, intrinsically decorated walls, there are no anthems. There, usually, we find when dignitaries, people with power, when they die, there is usually a song, an anthem, a poem that is played for them. There might not be any such things for these people, but still, can the poet is now asking a very important question: can storied urn or animated bust back to its mansion call the fleeting breath? Even though they don't have these dead people in the village, even though they don't have any of this posh memorials or fretted walls, can any of these storied urns, the decorated urns, or animated bust is the statue of a person's head, shoulder and head, not the entire body, only the shoulder and the head. So even if they have the best storied urn or the animated bust, do you think these things could ever bring back them back to life? Can honor's voice provoke the silent jest, or flattery soothe the dull cold ear of death? Just because you have power, just because you have honor, no matter how glorious your life is, we must all face the inevitable hour, the death. And death is again personified here. There is no flattery. Whatever you do, whatever you say, how powerful you are, how rich you are, all this doesn't matter. Death considers everyone as equals, whether you are rich or poor, powerful, powerless, landed, villager living in a town. You are all equal in front of death. Death has a cold ear. Death is not going to be affected by your emotions. So, whatever you have, whatever memorials you have, whatever fretted walls, anthems, storied urns, or animated best, none of this is going to change the mind of death. Till here, the poet told us, the speaker told us, that even though there is nothing special about their life or about the grave in which they lie now, they don't have any of these decorated tombs and so on. But still, we must understand that whatever glorious life or powerful life, whatever, even if it's a simple life, whatever life we lead, we all reach at the death's door in the end. But now suddenly the speaker has a new thought. Now he is now thinking, what if these people who are lying in this country graveyard, church graveyard, what if these people had got the right opportunities when they were alive? They might have been very talented. They might have had great chances of being famous and powerful. But they did not get the right opportunities in their life. That might have been the reason that they ended up leading a very simple life. This thought of the speaker is expressed in the following lines. Perhaps in this neglected sport is laid some heart once pregnant with celestial fire. Hands that rode the empire might have swayed or waked to ecstasy the living lyre. Now they might have had immense talents, celestial fire, something that is beyond human capacity, divine. But they were in a neglected sport. They did not have the right opportunities. These people might have even become great emperors, or they might have become great musicians. They living lyre is the musical instrument. They might have been able to play the lyre or compose music beautifully, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't use any opportunities because they did not have any opportunities. But knowledge, even though they could have been all these emperors and musicians, knowledge to their eyes, her ample page, rich with the spoils of time, did never unroll. Now, knowledge is personified here, and the speaker says that knowledge decided that she will not reveal her secrets about the history to these people. And chill penury, penury is poverty. Penury repressed their noble rage and froze the genial current of the soul. Poverty held them back and froze their creative minds. Now, if you cannot fill your stomach, you are never going to sit and write a beautiful poem. So they might have had beautiful creative souls, creative minds, imaginative minds, but their poverty prevented them from using any of those. Now, continuing with the thought that he shared before, that these people in the village who are dead now, if they had the right opportunities, they might have reached somewhere successful. With the same thought, we have the next stanza coming. Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bare. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and waste its sweetness on the desert air. Now there might be precious gems inside the caves under the ocean. We do not know, we have never reached, they are unfathomable. These ocean caves, these caves are places where we cannot reach. So, these stones, precious stones, what's the point of being there in the cave in the ocean? They will never be precious if they can never be reached at all. And full many a flower is born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness on the desert air. So, there are flowers which have been never seen by a human, and the scent, the sweet smell of these flowers just went waste without being smelt by any person. So these people are like these precious gems and flowers at the wrong places. They might be precious, but they are not at the right place. And amongst these people, the village people who are dead, there might have been a Hampton, Milton, or Cromwell, some village Hampton that with dauntless breast the little tyrant of his fields withstood. Now, John Hampden, he is known as a person who fought for people's rights. Now, there might have been a Hampden, at least a smaller version of him, who was very courageous. Dauntless is courageous. Who was very courageous that he fought against the tyrant or the landlord of his fields. At least he was courageous enough to do that. Or there might have been a Milton who could have been very good with his poems and literature, but he was mute. Even though he had this creative mind, he couldn't express it in words because he was illiterate, uneducated. Or there might have been a Cromwell who is guiltless of his country's blood. Now we know Cromwell was the Puritan leader. He supported the parliament and he beheaded Charles I, the King of England at that time. Now, the Cromwell that we know from history, he is guilty of his country's blood. But there might have been some other person like Cromwell who is guiltless of his country's blood amongst these village people. And the speaker continues with the same idea in the next stanza too. The applause of listening senates to command. Suppose the people we are talking about, the dead people from this village, suppose there was a monarch amongst them. He could have given a good speech, and the senates who were listening would have given a round of applause, would have clapped for what he told. And what if he was a good soldier? The threats of pain and ruin to despise. If he was a soldier, he would have faced the dangers of sufferings and defeats like a brave soldier. To scatter plenty over a smiling land. And if he was a king again, he could have just scattered money, plenty of money over a smiling land. Smiling land here refers to smiling people, and read their history in a nation's eyes. He could have kept his country happy and he would have had the chance to live a life so influential that his biography would have been reflected in the history of his nation. So, their history in a nation's eyes their Lord forbade, nor circumscribed alone their growing virtues, but their crimes confined. Now, here the speaker tells us since they did not get opportunities, they were not able to become popular or successful. Now, the same way, since they did not have these opportunities, they also did not get the chance to commit big crimes. So, even though they did not get the chance to do good, they also did not get the chance to do bad. And because of that, they did not have to slaughter anyone to get a throne. They did not have to kill anyone to get power, or they did not have to shut the gates of mercy on mankind. They did not have to pretend like they were not human, or they did not have to destroy an entire city, or do not take away the money from an entire city, or people, or women. They did not have to do any such things which took away their humanity. And because of this, these people never had to hide any guilt. They did not commit any mistake, so they did not have any guilt also. The struggling pangs of conscious truth to hide, to quench the blushes of ingenuous shame. They did not have anything to hide, and because of that, they did not have any shame. And they also did not have to pretend like they liked someone who is powerful and write poems and songs for them. So they did not have to hide anything, they did not have to quench the blushes of shame or heap the shrine of luxury and pride. They did not have to honor luxurious and proud people with their poetry and poems just for the sake of it. And then the speaker says that these people are far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife. Now, the people in a city or a town, these people are called madding crowd by the speaker because their life is always a hustle. We always want more money, we are very busy, we have no time. It's like we are living a madding life. And the life of these people in the villages, their life is so far away, very different from the life of a person in a city. And they don't have any ignoble strife. Ignoble strife is things we do which are not noble. Like we want to earn more money, we are very greedy, cheating others because we are very greedy, or corruption. All these things which happen in the town life is never going to happen in their life. So they are far from the madding crowd's ignoble strife. Their sober wishes never learn to stray. Their wishes are very simple and sober, very logical and rational. They only need the basics of life, and they have never strayed away. They have never moved to a different path from that. Along the cool, secured way of life, they kept the noiseless tenor of their way. They lived a very simple and comfortable life. And they kept living that, even though their life is not very eventful, their life was happy and contented. Yet, even these bonds from insult to protect, even though these people have not lived an extraordinary life, a special life, there is still some respect paid to them. To protect these people's bonds from total disrespect, we have erected some monuments, we have given some rhymes, some songs or sculptures, but these things are not like the kind of memorials we give for these powerful or rich people, like we have talked before. So the kind of memorials we give for them are very different. Some frail memorial, some very weak, which doesn't cost much. Some frail memorial just for the name of it, sake of it. Still erected nigh with uncouth rhymes. It may not be a poem or a song which is written by great musicians and poets. Something very rough and shapeless sculptures, not sculptures with all the details and polished, elaborate patterns, shapeless sculptures. So, these are the types of memorials we have erected for them. And yet, even though the memorials are not that elaborate, posh, luxurious looking ones, it still implores the passing tribute of a sigh. When you move, when you pass that way and you see this memorial, a very simple memorial for these people, you still feel it in your heart. You are still emotional about the simple life that they have led, about the purity of the lives they have led. So even a passing by who do not know these people, which these people who have led a very simple life, who are not at all known, who are not at all special, even such a person, a passing visitor, will sigh seeing these memorials. Their name, their years, spelt by the unlettered muse. So we know that there will be the name of the person who is dead, and also the year in which he was born, she was born, or and also the year in which they died. So all this is written by a person who is uneducated, someone who is illiterate. the place of fame and elegy supply, and many a holy text around she strews that teach the rustic moralist to die. So there will be a lot of quotes from the Bible on the tombstone, on the graveyard, and these teach the rustic people, the unrefined, uncivilized, good hearted people, how to die. So some quotes from the Bible will be also there on their grave, and all this, their name, the years, all these quotes, everything is written by someone who is uneducated. A very simple memorial for them. And then the speaker asks a very important question: for who to dumb forgetfulness a prey, this pleasing anxious being ever resigned, left the warm precincts of the cheerful day, nor cast one longing lingering to look behind. So, for who to dump forgetfulness a prey? Is there anyone in this world, rich or poor, anyone in this world who wants to be forgotten by everyone? We all wish to be remembered. We want at least a few people, the very close circle that we have, at least them to remember us. So the speaker is asking us that is there anyone in this world who will willingly be a prey to forgetfulness, who is ready to be forgotten by everyone in this world? Even though we face a lot of difficulties, we still want to live. We all have wished that we could live a little longer on those happy moments in our lives. So that's what he is telling. This pleasing, anxious being ever resigned, left the warm presence of the cheerful day. When you have a happy day, you wish that you could stay there a little longer. And once that moment is over, we all look behind. We all leave a lingering look behind and wish, we all long that we could have been there a bit longer. On some fond breast the parting soul relies, some pious drops the closing eye requires. We all wish that we will be remembered by at least the close ones, the people who are very close to us. And we wish that there would be some drops, pious drops, which are our tears, at least some tears from these people. We want them to miss us, which shows that they actually loved us when we were alive. Even from the tomb, the voice of nature cries, even in our ashes, live their wonted fires. And then the speaker says that even when we die, even after one's death, the people around us, our family, our friends, the people who are close to us, they still cry because we are not with them. And also the person who is dead, even in the death, even as ashes in the ground, they still try to live out their usual wishes. There is still this wish to live. A person is never ready to welcome death. A person always wishes to live a little longer, to enjoy a happy moment a little longer. So that's what the speaker means by even in our ashes live their wounded fires. Wounded fires are the usual passions in a being once we are alive. Now, according to the speaker, even when we die, these passions remain in us. Okay, so till now, the speaker was talking about these people, the village people, the common folk who are dead, who are there in the graveyard near the church, and who are not given any elaborate memorials like the rich and famous people. Now, all of a sudden, we find that the poem, the poetic lines are about the speaker who is standing there and thinking about these people. For thee here is the speaker. For thee, who mindful of the unhonored dead. Now, the speaker has been mindful. He was ready to care about these unhonored dead, these people who were not honored enough. They were not honored like the other people, the popular and the famous people. So, this person, this speaker, who cared for the unhonored dead, does in these lines. These lines is this poem, the poem Elegy written in a country churchyard. Their artless tale relate. So he has talked about their story. And the story is called artless because their story is not anything special. It's a very usual common story. If chance by lonely contemplation led, some kindred spirit shall inquire thy fate. Now, by chance, maybe after so many years, just like you, now you have come here, you saw the graveyard, and you thought about these people and how they might have lived and what kind of respect they received after their death. Now, just like you, some other spirit, some other person would also one day inquire about thy fate. Another person would inquire, would ask about what has happened to you, the speaker. And when such a question is asked, happily, some hoary headed swain may say, now, hoary headed is white haired. So, a white haired villager, an old man may say, often I have seen him at the peep of dawn. Yes, I used to see him at the peep of dawn in the morning, brushing with hasty steps the dews away to meet the sun upon the upland lawn. So, when the old man sees him in the morning, he would be rushing upwards with hasty steps very fastly. He would be walking very fastly as if he is going there to the top to meet the sun, to see the sunrise. And then he says, there at the foot of yonder nodding beech that reads its old fantastic roots so high. And sometimes this man, the speaker, is also seen by the old man under the nodding beech tree. So the tree has old fantastic roots, a very old and high, tall tree. So this is where the speaker is seen by the old man later on. His listless length at noontide would he stretch. So he would be there under this tree at noontide, at noon, and pour upon the brook that babbles by. So there is a brook, like a water flowing stream, near to this tree. So our speaker at noon, he would be sitting under the tree. His listless length, he is a tall man, so he would be just laying on uh, the bank, and then he would be watching the water babbling by. And he is not simply looking at water; he would be also thinking. He would be very pensive. And then the old man says, hard by yon wood, now smiling as in scorn. So sometimes I see this man near to this yon wood, and he smiles as if he is scorning at someone. And there are times when I have seen this man, the speaker, muttering his wayward fancies as he would draw. So there are times when the speaker would simply talk to himself. He would mutter something and he would walk around, and now drooping, woeful wan, like one forlorn. And there are times when the old man has seen this person being so lonely, he is so forlorn, he is a woeful man, so depressed, so sad, or crazed with care, or crossed in hopeless love. And sometimes the man walks, the speaker has been seen by the old man walking as if he is a hopeless lover who is crazed with care, and he is crossed in hopeless love. But one morning, after, even though the speaker is usually seen by the old man in the morning here, noontide there, sometimes he is smiling, sometimes he talks, sometimes he is sad, sometimes he walks around. But then all of a sudden, one fine day, one morning, I missed him on the custom hill. I couldn't find him. I did not see him on the usual hill alongside the heath and near his favorite tree. I could not also find him near to the heath or to his favorite tree. So according to the man, the old man kept seeing the speaker here and there, and then all of a sudden the speaker was nowhere to be found. And the next time that the old man sees the speaker was dead. So that is what is told in the next stanza. The next with dirges due in sad array, slow through the churchway path we saw him borne. So the next time I saw him, he was being carried through the churchway path, the way through which we go to the church. And dirges were sung for him. Dirges are sad songs. Approach and read. Now, you seem to be a person who can read. I'm sure you are not from the village. You might have come here from somewhere. You seem to be educated and literate. So you go and you go to his grave. Mm? You can go there, approach, and please read the epitaph on his grave. Approach and read, for thou canst read the lay graved on the stone beneath yon aged thorn. So you will find a grave beneath that thorn plant, the thorny plant, and there is there on the grave you will also find an epitaph on the grave. So you go and read what is written over there. And the epitaph reads like this: here rests his head upon the lap of earth. So now the person, the speaker, is dead. We could also say that Gray has written this epitaph for himself. So Gray is dead, the speaker is dead, and his head now rests upon the lap of earth. He is now laying on the lap of earth, Mother Earth. A youth to fortune and to fame unknown. Now, our Gray, Thomas Gray, he has not known fortune, success, or fame, popularity, or he was neither rich nor popular. Fair signs frowned not on his humble birth. Even though he had a humble birth, he was born into a very normal family. Fair signs, signs here means knowledge. He still had knowledge. Knowledge did not frown on him, and melancholy marked him for her own. So even though he had knowledge, he was always melancholic. For most part of his life, he was sad, he was lonely. And even though this was the case, he was melancholic, he had a humble birth, but still, large was his bounty. He had a large heart, and his soul sincere. He was sincere. Heaven did a recompense as largely sent. He gave to misery all he had, a tear he gained from heaven. It was all he wished, a friend. Now, there was only one thing he actually really wished, and heaven had also given him what he wished. He had wished for a good friend, and heaven gave him a good friend. But he had to give his friend to misery. And that was all he had. He had to give out everything he had, which means he lost his good friend, which could refer to his friend Richard West. No further seek his merits to disclose. Now, on the epitaph, it's written that to the person who is reading the epitaph, now don't go around seeking for the merits of this person or draw his frailties from their dread abode. Don't look for my drawbacks, my frailties too. There they alike in trembling hope repose. Repose is rest. Now all my merits and all my drawbacks, my frailties, they both alike, equally, they are now resting the bosom of his Father and his God. So, all my merits and all my drawbacks, they are all resting along with me in the grave, or according to the words of Thomas Gray, on the bosom, at the lap of his Father, his God. So, in short, don't try anymore to talk about this person's strengths or weaknesses. It's all in the grave. And there is no point of discussing that anymore. He is now with his Father, with God. So that's the poem Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray. So, in short, if you want to summarize the poem is about how we are all equals in front of death. There is no rich, no poor, no famous or no unpopular, nothing of that sort, no discrimination in front of death. So we simply have the speaker, the poem in short, speaker who gives out the setting of the poem. We have the country churchyard, the graveyard, and there he talks about the graves of these villagers and the simple life that they have led, a very simple life. But then the speaker tells us, even though they have lived a very simple life, don't mock them. Their hard work was useful to us. We have all depended on them. And he also says that the paths of glory leads but to the grave. We have no right to mock them, because whether we have ambition, whether we have successful or not, or whether we are famous or not, all the paths in the end we all go to the grave. It all leads to the grave. And then he says that these villagers, they did not have, these dead villagers did not have any big memorials, because they were not rich or famous. But They were like hidden gems or like hidden flowers. Even though they were not famous, if they had the right opportunities, they could have become a Hampton or a Milton or a Cromwell. But even though the poet says, the speaker says, even though they did not get the right opportunities to become famous or rich, they also did not get the opportunities to become, to do any sins, to do any evils. They did not do any crimes, and so they did not have any shame. They could lead a happy and simple life. And then we talk about the respect given to these people. Now, big memorials and big sculptures were not given for them. There were no decorated walls for them, but there were simple memorials to show some respect to these people. And some illiterate man or uneducated man might have written some quotes, Bible quotes on their grave, which is not actually very poetic, but something, at least some respect shown to this dead people. Because nobody wants to be forgotten. We all wish to live a little longer, to stay a little longer in our happy memories. We all wish that there would be someone who remembers us, some person who would shed a tear for us. So we all like to be remembered. That is why there is a small memorial for even these people who were not known, who were not popular. And then the speaker talks about a future, a time when another person would come in search of knowing the destiny, of knowing the fate of the person himself, of knowing what happened to the speaker who is speaking about these villages in the poem. And then we sees an old man who talks about seeing him here and there, and one fine day he was missing, and then the next time that he saw him, the speaker was dead and his body was being carried to the church. And then we comes across the epitaph. And in the epitaph, Grace says that here lies the person who did not have any fortune, who did not have any fame. He had enough knowledge, even though he had a humble birth, and he was also, at most times of his life, melancholic. He was sad. But he had a large heart, a sincere soul, and he lost his one friend, the only thing he had, the only thing he wished. And don't come seeking for his merits or frailties, because now he is with God. So that is the poem, and the greatest theme of the poem is death, and the greatest message that the poem gives us, that we all die in the end. And what matters in the end is not what we have achieved, but what matters is how satisfied we were with the life we led, or how happy we were with the life we led. So that is what matters at the end of all of this. And we are in no way different, we are all equal. So that is a poem by Thomas Gray, a very popular, a beautiful poem. I hope you have enjoyed the video. It was quite long, but the long video is worth listening to, because I did enjoy the poem and I hope you also enjoy the poem. Please let me know your suggestion in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching.